I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime, and this is Currents. Infidelity. What makes people cheat?
Many people turn to outside relationships out of desperation.
Some faith-filled advice on staying faithful.
The person to whom we are committed, the cause to which we are committed, takes precedent over everything else that we are doing.
And should you let your children see the new Harry Potter movie?
Honestly and truly, we're all raised on the fantasies of this world.
Good evening. Cheating. Well, we hear a lot about it, and that word can mean many things. There's what happens in classrooms around the country, sharing your homework or peeking over someone's shoulder at test time. Baseball players have also been accused of illegally medicating to perform better on the field.
Yeah, sure, steroids and all that. But then there's another type of cheating that's been in the news recently. Marital infidelity, and that's what we want to focus on tonight. One study shows that 22% of adults in a monogamous relationship have actually cheated. It's happening everywhere, with a couple of recent high-profile situations playing out in the public stage. We all know about those. Right. So I decided to head out and see what the public has to say. From politics to professional sports, cheating runs rampant. South Carolina Governor Mark Sanford spilling details of his extramarital affair from the podium. Devout Catholic actor Mel Gibson leaving his marriage of decades for a new lover and child. Former NFL quarterback Steve McNair, whose affair with a younger woman turned deadly.
Well, we're seeing publicized cases. I don't think the cases that we've seen in the media are that different from what happens to people who aren't celebrities.
With today's pressures to be all things to all people all the time, psychologist Jeffrey Kleinberg says what often leads to an affair is a perfect storm of stressors, including troubles with personal finances, children, or even other family members.
As the old saying goes, desperate people do desperate things. And many people turn to outside relationships out of desperation. They know it's dangerous. They know it could put everything that they hold dearly at risk.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
This young woman has never been married, but has been cheated on twice. It's something she wouldn't wish on anyone.
You're really upset, but when I've been cheated on twice, so it's just, we're done, that's it. You don't have to explain anything to me. I don't want to know anything. We're done.
And this UPS driver says that he was cheated on, but he also cheated too.
By your friend.
And how did it feel? How was it? How did you take it?
Very, very hard, very hard. It's not a nice feeling.
On the other hand, this couple has been in a monogamous marriage for 50 years. That's right, 50, 5 decades. And they say the key to a long-lasting union is respect.
I think it's generally approved, it's generally advertised, it's generally known in all the newspapers and everywhere else that this is what a lot of people do, so people think that it's acceptable.
But a physical affair is just one kind. Dr. Kleinberg says just emotional intimacy outside of the marriage, which now often begins through exchanges on the internet, can wreak havoc as well.
It's much more difficult to repair physical affairs after that. Than it is just emotional intimacy. But emotional intimacy with someone outside the marriage might be a risk indicator that needs to be attended to.
The good news is there is hope, recognizing the signs of trouble before they start and counseling when something goes wrong.
If a couple is willing to do the work and willing to not make any decisions out of anger, but to see a trained professional who's not going to judge them, but will help them understand what might have contributed to the problems, I'm very hopeful for those individuals.
And it is so good to know that there is counseling available. And, Matt, I even have my own experience with this. Somebody that I had dated lied about being married, said that he wasn't, and I ended up dating him and ended up, dating a person who was married.
Wow. And, I'm sorry that had happened, and I can only imagine how that feels on your side. I can also only imagine really what the other person was thinking and why hide something like that and lie like that.
It's just something that took a big toll on me, and I can only imagine perhaps in their marriage as well. But who knows? There is counseling available for that, and we'll have more on that later.
Right. We'll talk with a priest about some different forms of cheating, and he'll also have some advice to avoid going astray. But stay tuned, because coming up next, we'll have the day's headlines.
Welcome back to Currents. I'm Francesca Maxime.
And I'm Matt McClure. Coming up later on, more on cheating and staying faithful as we talk to a priest who prepares couples for marriage.
But first, let's take a look at the day's headlines. For the second time in 5 months, a Spanish priest was found dead in Cuba. The priest's body was discovered in the parish where he'd been working. The church said in a statement that he appeared to have been murdered. In February, another Spanish priest was found dead on the side of a road. The two incidents appear to be unrelated. A conversion of heart. That's what Pope Benedict is praying for following a string of bombings of Christian churches in Iraq on Sunday. In one case, a bomb went off as churchgoers left a Sunday evening mass, killing 4 people. In a telegram to the cardinal of the region, the Pope prayed for a conversion of heart for the bombers and for authorities to do everything possible to promote peace.
The Pope also asked people to pray for Honduras following the recent military coup there. The coup was a response to the Honduran president's attempt to overturn presidential term limits. The Pope assured Hondurans of his prayers and extended to them a special apostolic blessing. And after a very busy week, the Pope is taking a break from the Vatican, as we hear from Rome Reports.
This is how Benedict XVI started his summer vacation. At noon, the Pope arrived at Lake Combs, a town in northern Italy near Mont Blanc. As soon as he got off the plane, he said this would be a time to rest and work, but mainly to rest. He was welcomed by the town's mayor and a group of children, who received him with flower bouquets. The Pope will stay in a small house that belongs to the Salesians. He'll stay there until July 29th and spend the rest of the summer in Castel Gandolfo. This is the 3rd summer the Pope spends in Lake Combs, a place that John Paul II also visited on 10 occasions. Everything is ready to assure the Pope's rest. Curiously, there's a piano inside the house and a barbecue outside.
Castel Gandolfo is the Pope's summer residence.
Well, stay tuned. There is much more Currents ahead. Later on, could Harry Potter be leading children away from the church?
And when couples who say I do, don't.
Adultery really is a crime against the family. It's a crime against the other spouse.
Welcome back. Well, we're talking about infidelity today, following the high-profile cases of South Carolina Governor Mark Sanford and NFL MVP Steve McNair. Now, earlier you heard from an expert and some men and women on the street who have experienced firsthand the good and the bad in relationships.
That's right. And now we're going to hear from someone with firsthand experience helping couples prepare for marriage. He's Monsignor Guy Massie, pastor of St. Andrew the Apostle Church in Bay Ridge. And I had a chance to sit down and speak with him yesterday. Well, Monsignor, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. Now, we're talking about cheating and infidelity, the things that have been in the news a lot lately, with the South Carolina governor, not all that long ago, Governor Elliott Spitzer, a little bit longer ago, President Bill Clinton, and things like that. Cheating, what constitutes cheating? Because it may not be as simple as a one-sentence definition, I would imagine.
Depends on what we're talking about. If we're talking about cheating in a marriage, I think it's a violation of the marital covenant between two people. And that's a serious issue. And there are many levels of this issue. There is a not spending enough time, a lack of communication, a preference for someone or something or some other activity to the family or to the wife and or husband. Or it could be even more serious, and that could be having sexual relations with someone who is not your spouse.
Gotcha. So talk a little bit about those other forms of cheating, because we're going to spend, I guess, the most time probably in our conversation about the infidelity, about the sleeping with someone else. But what about these other forms? I mean, we were talking a little bit before we actually started the interview about, spending time, maybe a husband spending time with, let's say, his poker buddies or something like that, might be constituted as cheating.
In some way, if those poker buddies begin to dominate, or the gambling begins to dominate over and above the marital relationship, and I'm not making enough time for my wife, or I'm not even thinking about that, and I'm taking my wife, or people who are in commitments, as I am, to the church, etc., then the person to whom we are committed, the cause to which we are committed, takes precedent over everything else that we are doing. And so we reconcile all of our other interests in light of that commitment. How does my wife come first in this? How do my children come? How does my vocation fit into this behavior? And if it doesn't, then we need to sit down and talk, or you need to sit down to reevaluate your behavior. I think that's an important issue in that, how to look at that.
Gotcha. Now, we were, as I mentioned, as we started, there are several public figures that we have seen that have, I guess, in a lot of cases, fallen from grace because of infidelity in a marriage. What do we learn from those situations? Do people learn anything by, I guess, the example, be it good or bad, of our public leaders?
Well, I think our public leaders are just that. They are public leaders, they're political leaders, they're people we, I suppose, invest with trust. Our public leaders are not always our moral leaders. We would like them to be moral, but the governor or the president is not the religious leader of the country or the state. We would like them to be moral for numerous reasons. I would imagine in some societies, and some people would feel, well, if you are not faithful in a commitment to your home and your family, and if you have done this there, which is so sacrosanct, well, are you trustworthy in the public arena and in the handling of matters of state for us? That's certainly a very valid way, I think, to look at this.
Right.
There are other people who would say, no, that what we do privately has nothing to do with our public trust. This depends, I think, on individuals. I tend to think it really does actually have an effect on how we deal publicly, is also affected by how we're living privately.
Right. Talk a little about the effect that this has on a family unit.
Well, in these days of economic problems, this infidelity has affected many situations, not only public figures. I think, one, adultery really is a crime against the family. It's a crime against the other spouse. It is. It has ramifications. It's a breaking of trust. It's a breaking of trust between a husband and wife, between a child and parents. It shakes the foundation of the family, particularly for children, and this causes all sorts of problems. How do you get that trust back? What example, if it's a man who does this, what example does he set for his sons? How will his sons treat their future wives or their wives? As a result, I think it sets not a good precedent. Now, if there are problems in a marriage, like what causes the infidelity? Well, sometimes there are problems in the marriage which we don't hear about in the newspaper. Sometimes there's a lack of communication in the marriage. Sometimes there's a drifting out of the marriage looking for things that the marriage should be giving, like communication, like doing things together, like being part of a unit.
Right.
Sometimes, in other issues, you may find that power positions play an important role in some types of sexual behavior. And so there are men in power. There are also women in power, too, okay, who have done these things in a sense because I can do them.
Yeah.
And therefore, that constitutes a whole other issue on how does one see one's position and this mythology of power in relationships. I think when in matters of sexuality, that's always going to be with us. There is always going to be attractions. There are always going to be temptations. There's always going to be, well, what if I, or things look better on across the street, etc. I think those are very real. Well, then how do you reel yourself in back to reality? On what do you base your relationship? What is the value system you're operating from? I think those questions have to be asked. Right. And sometimes when a marriage suffers this, can it survive? Yes. And I've seen it survive.
Right.
But it has to be worked on with both partners. There cannot be a third party involved in this.
Right.
There has to be an admission that what I have done is wrong in a society that doesn't seem to want to say that. Mm-hmm. We have a no-fault morality here. This is wrong. How do we make this better? Both have to be willing to commit to the relationship. Right. Both may need counseling as a family, and they have to rebuild the trust. Right. Very frequently, it's the trust that's shattered.
And it's a tough thing to do. Well, Monsignor, thank you so much for being here. It's time has flown by as I predicted it would. But we will have some more information. I'll get some more information for you on maybe some resources that are available for people that have been dealing with this or have had this come up in their marriage relationship. I'll put that on our blog, and I'll direct people over to our website to read about that.
Thank you.
Monsignor, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, Monsignor Guy Massie of St. Andrew the Apostle Church in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. And, you know, I know it's something that he talked about kind of briefly there, but something that I think deserves mentioning is, you know, we've been talking a lot about this being primarily a male issue. Steve McNair, Bill Clinton, Elliot Spitzer, the governor of South Carolina, things like that. But it's also a female thing as well. You know, I come from Georgia, where over the past few years we've had several stories where teachers, female teachers, have had sexual relationships with their students.
Absolutely, and obviously that's wrong on a number of different levels, but at the same time, yes, women can cheat as easily as men can. It's just that we seem to hear a little bit more about the men.
Right.
The good thing that he mentioned, and one of the things that the Dr. Kleinberg that I interviewed earlier in the other piece, is that you can get help if you are in a situation where you're in a marriage that you'd like to try and repair it or see what happens, either you know, at pastoral counselor, a priest, you know, you can go to an actual, you know, psychologist or psychiatrist. There's group therapy, there's family therapy if kids are involved as well. So we'll put some of those resources on the website, obviously, because we want people to, you know, at least investigate that counseling if they can.
Yeah. So we'll ask people to check it out.
Yep, it's a tough issue. So like I said, we are posting that information about infidelity on the blog. Just head over to netny.net/currents and click on Riding the Wave. Stay tuned, there's much more currents coming up. Just ahead, the new Harry Potter movie. Where will your children be?
Two thumbs up? Not quite, but the Vatican newspaper does have some good things to say about the latest Harry Potter movie. In its review of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, the paper says that after seeing the film, viewers will likely remember the scenes that, quote, summon values, such as friendship, altruism, loyalty, and the gift of oneself.
But that is a change from the comments of an Austrian priest who characterized the Harry Potter novels as Satanism, actually. And we wanted to find out what locals have to say, so we spoke with parishioners at St. Finbarr's, St. Dominic's, and St. Athanasius and asked them a simple question. Would you allow your child to watch Harry Potter?
I don't see anything wrong with Harry Potter or fantasy. I mean, I grew up on fantasy. And, you know, people of my age all grew up in fantasy, and you know, we all, I believe, turned out okay, you know, but any generation is going to have an influence, a negative influence.
They make me feel uncomfortable. I know I have a 13-year-old son, and I wouldn't introduce them to him or my 17-year-old daughter, and neither one of them are interested in it. I don't like all those wizards and fairies and all that other. I don't believe in it.
I think that totally depends on the child.
You know, you gotta know their interests, their maturity, their background, you know, because we gotta be open to the world, but we also gotta be careful. Honestly and truly, we're all raised on the fantasies of this world. And I think the best story of all to teach your children is the birth of Christ. That's what I feel.
It's no different than reading a horror book or something scary like that. So I don't see any reason that they shouldn't be able to read it or go to the movies, as long as we explain to them that there's no such thing as Maleficent or any magical force like that, and that God is the ultimate creator and the ultimate magician, so to speak. So then I think that they could watch it, yes.
He's a little young for it, and it's not really my style.
It's like everyone's going to take me anyway. All my friends are going to go. I have to go.
Yeah, I think it's you know, a fantasy movie that, you know, captures the imagination, and, you know, I don't see it being anything more than that.
Maybe if they're older and they can understand more, yes. But younger, I don't think so.
A G rating, right? Was bad? Well, G is good. Stands for good. G, good? No?
I have 3 stepchildren who all adore Harry Potter, and they're all very well-adjusted children. So I'm okay with Harry Potter and fantasy. Listen, we grew up on Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. How much more fantasy can you get?
And that is a mixture of opinions on Harry Potter. And our Natalia Ortiz is here, and you're actually headed to the movies tonight, aren't you?
That's right. I'm actually going to go watch the advanced screening and talk to some of the people there, which I'm imagining are going to be standing in line, hopefully, you know, dressed up or whatever. And we're also going to be talking to a child psychologist later on to figure out, you know, what are the messages that the media is sending, and is that something that has an impact on children?
Right. Well, it should be very interesting, and I'm also going to talk with a movie critic on tomorrow's show about the movie, a faith-based movie critic, to talk about kind of the spirituality and the morality of the film as well. So we'll have kind of complete coverage of the Harry Potter movie tomorrow.
Yes, we will.
Such a following after all those books.
I know, and it's been a run. I mean, literally every time a Harry Potter book or movie has come out since the 90s. I mean, this all started back in the 90s with the series of books.
Right.
Any time that another book or another movie has come out, it's just been like a frenzy.
It's always a big deal, you know. It's something that it's been controversial, and now it seems it's not so much, but maybe there are still people who are concerned.
Right.
So, you know, it's something good to talk about.
Well, we are on it.
That's right.
Definitely.
That's for sure.
You especially.
Thank you.
Right. Well, and also, I come from Georgia as well, where there's been a lot of controversy about this. A woman by the name of Laura Mallory, who is a mom, wanted to get the books taken off the shelves. And so there's been all that down south as well. So it's been a controversy all over the place. So it's going to be interesting to get some different perspectives this time.
All right, here from Brooklyn this time.
That's right. And that's all for this edition of Currents. Now, coming up on tomorrow's show, as we just told you, full Harry Potter coverage. And also how the Farrah Fawcett hairstyle is helping a good cause.
And remember, you can always catch us online. Head over to netny.net/currents, and you can watch clips of our show, check out our blog, Riding the Wave, and also leave your own comments. You can also follow us on Twitter. The address there is twitter.com/currentsny. So for Natalia Ortiz and Matt McClure, I'm Francesca Maxime. Thanks so much for watching tonight, and have a great night.